Hi, and welcome to A Time to Thrill. It's me, your host, Amy Austin. This month, I have the delight of speaking with Joanna Joy Seetoo. So I just did the interview with Joanna, and now I'm recording the intro because I realized we're going to really need an intro. So what I think we didn't talk about during the interview is I kept Joanna in the divorce. No. So my ex's stepfather is Joanna's uncle. Oh my God, right? So I met her, when we talk about this, I met her in the 90s at a relative of the stepfather's, one of his relatives' houses, which would have been probably in Long Island. I actually remember. I have an absolute memory of it, so it's not a mystery. And then there was a wedding. Some people got married, and so they're divorced now, but people got married, and so there was a lot of time I spent with the Seetoos, and they're like this delightful family that I love. And Joanna, I love Joanna. I love Joanna since the 90s. And she's always had this super interesting life, but it's like family stuff. So I saw her at random family gatherings or like at her wedding um, for years. And so we were either both in New York or here in California. So from time to time, I would see her like at family gatherings. Like, honestly, I'm just gonna be honest, like at just family gatherings. And she was always living a big creative life. And it was just like, oh my God, like she was always designing jewelry. I mainly have a necklace from her and it doesn't work with turtlenecks. Actually, I wear it often, but not right now. And I really loved knowing her. And I mean, I still know her and I see her from time to time, but she's in San Diego and I'm in LA. And believe it or not, that 80 miles is a big hump. It's a big bridge to cross because the traffic. The last time I saw her, I drove down. I was doing writing one of the beach retreats, to be frank, and I drove down and she drove up and we met for who knows, lunch, brunch, breakfast. I don't know. Um, but she's great, but she's always been doing, and we'll talk about this in the podcast, these super interesting creative things. Like she's in the wedding industry. She's like flying to Asia, looking at like jewelry manufacturers. She's working for like this big person. She's like selling to Nordstrom. She's like selling to Macy's. Apparently she's selling to Target. And it was always like fascinating. And, I'm sitting at home. It's like, what'd you do? Well, I read a book. And she's like jet setting, Um, but I really love people who live a big creative life, and she always did. But I realized, like, I mean, family gatherings, you're talking about, I don't know what, but like you're moving between people and you have like different conversations. But like the authors, I know this is the first time I've ever had like a long form conversation about her entire trajectory because and like the thing is like there's family photos that go around like in family newsletters and stuff. So that's like when I refer to talk about pictures and things like that, that's what I would have been referring to. Um, that's where I would have seen pictures of random people or like at different gatherings. But because clearly I'm Black and she's Chinese, I don't think it would be a natural leap to think that we had been at family gatherings together. But that is certainly how I know Joanna. So I hope that you enjoy this interview about her big creative life. I love it. I love her, and I think you will too. Before we dive into today's conversation, I want to take a moment to thank this episode's sponsor, Audible. You know how much I love a good story. I write them, I read them, and sometimes when I can't sit down long enough to open a book, I listen to them. Lately, I've been listening to Audible while I walk, travel, or even sometimes while cooking dinner. There's something about hearing a story performed that makes it come alive in a different way. I just finished, Julie Chan is Dead by Lian Zhang, an Alice Feeney book, Beautiful Ugly, and the latest Lindley book by Elizabeth George. So I'm going to be honest, this is how I do it. I get a book both on Kindle and on Audible, and I go back and forth listening to both. So when I'm driving in the car or with my son at some activity, I
will listen to audiobooks, and then when I'm home, I read them on Kindle. And Audible makes it easy to switch back and forth in the app. Honestly, I do it every time. I want to keep the book going while I'm driving. And so I just switch to the audiobook, and then when I get home I switch back to the Kindle because honestly I can read faster than I can listen. Anyway, the best part is that with Audible, you get a 30-day free trial. You can start listening today. You get one audiobook you can keep forever, even if you cancel. So if you've been wanting to read more stories that pull you in and won't let go, including my own Casey Court series, which are all available on Audible, go to audible.com. The link is in the show notes, or in the alternative ebooks.buzz/audible.
Hi, and welcome to A Time to Thrill. It's me, your host, Aime Austin. This month, I have the absolute delight of interviewing Joanna Seetoo. Hi, Joanna.
Hello, Amy. Thanks so
So,
much for having me.
I was thinking about this when I was getting ready and putting on my adult-facing clothes. I think I met you. I'm gonna say this is so long ago. I don't know, like 94, 95. Do you
Maybe even
think?
before. Yeah, I think it was even before because I think I met you maybe at Aunt Vicky's house.
I remember that. I just don't remember the year, like the 90s. Somebody asked me about the 90s the other day, and I thought that's a lot of years ago, people, to ask me about something. So is that more than 30 years ago? Oh my gosh. Okay, age
But
is
we were children, so it doesn't even matter.
okay. So Joanna's from New York. I'm from New York. That I mean, and okay, I have many questions. And okay, I actually know some of the answers. So, but I'm asking for the benefit of listeners. Where did you grow up?
I grew up in Lower Manhattan. Yep, downtown.
And what? Where did you go to high school? Actually, I don't think I know this.
So this is interesting. I wound up going to Brooklyn Tech, even though I had planned to go to music and art and was
Okay.
accepted, but my folks wouldn't let me go to a non-academic school. So of course I hadn't studied or anything, and I wound up going to Brooklyn Tech, but there had been a bad race riot there
Mhm.
while I was in at school, and so they let me transfer out, and I wound up finishing at this very progressive high school called City As School.
Okay. Wow. I did not know this. I should have. I don't know. I don't know if this conversation would ever have come up before. So you've did you always want to pursue something artistic?
Yes. I mean, I knew from when I was really young that I was an artist
Mhm.
of some sort, right? Like I decided I wanted to do music. I sang for a long time, but I wound up doing a lot of art as well and loved to do art. And even in junior high school, I thought it was such an honor, but they had me do the calligraphy for all the diplomas.
Oh my gosh.
I know
Really?
now people would look at it and say, child
Labor?
labor. I was
Oh,
just like, of course I'm going to stay after school and do all the calligraphy. This is so wonderful that they've asked me.
oh my gosh. Okay. That's okay, that's fascinating. So so this is the thing I always wondered. When I met you, I feel like you were already designing jewelry, but I'd have to really think about it. What made you choose that of all the things? Because you're the only person I know. I'm thinking I know people who like write. I know a lot of writers, obviously, graphic artists, people who compose music, like all sorts of things, but jewelry designing is I don't say fairly niche because other people do it, but it's kind of niche.
So you want to know what really prompted me?
Yes.
So none of my friends, and I certainly wasn't with uh I like a really solid boyfriend or husband or anything at that time. I actually at that point I had already split up with somebody, and all my friends, though, we all liked really beautiful jewelry. We just didn't have the means for it. And I felt, well, that shouldn't stop us. And so I enrolled in a jewelry making class, which was a bench jeweler class,
Mhm.
where you're using the torch, you're using, sharp objects. And I loved it. I fell in love with it.
How
From
okay.
all of the
Mhm.
different disciplines I ever did, metal and stone were so innate to me. They felt so right. And I just jumped deep into it where morning, noon, and night, that's all I wanted to do.
I wanna say this, I've always thought of taking a jewelry making class, and I was gonna do it right before COVID, and it just never happens. I don't think I have a passion for it, it just seems interesting. I'll say that, it seems interesting, but a lot of work, honestly. And I wasn't so good when I did metal in school when I was a kid. I didn't have the patience for it, I don't think. So what were the first, like, pieces that you made?
Oh
I mean,
my
I
goodness.
assume they were for you or
No,
friends.
it was for my mother. I made
Oh.
very, very little jewelry for me. I never got into that thing where I'm making jewelry for me. It's always with somebody else. And in fact, my best pieces, I already have somebody in my head when I'm designing them. So
Okay.
I use other people as my inspiration. They're always my muse. And that's what prompts the the flow of
Mhm.
coming out with something that is really beautiful and evergreen. And so my mother actually had a lot of my early pieces because I gave them to her. And I pretty much scared myself the last time we were in New York when I was just like, oh my gosh, I was terrible. Like, look at this. Look at that. That's set horribly. Oh my gosh, look at that gap. That's not even. But
Oh my gosh.
and then some of it's like, gee, that was pretty good. Huh. Oh, I was good at that.
Mhm.
That was kind of funny, but yeah.
I think about you. So let me share this with listeners. Yesterday, Joanna sent me a picture of the 2 of us from 3 years ago, and I was wearing the same sweater, which is a whole thing. But I was also wearing, a necklace that you'd made oh my god, this is so long ago. But I remember you went through because I bought 2, one for me, one for a friend. They were zodiac, sorry, I had to think of the word. Um, like zodiac necklaces, and they had I don't know, it was a Scorpio, it was black, so I don't know what the stone was, and for a friend, I assume I'm not good with zodiac signs, she was born in September like a lot of people, and it was green, but I don't know the stone. Sorry, I'm not good with stones. And I really liked that, but I feel like there's been many iterations, so when I met you, there were 2 things. I remember buying that, so you must have had a separate business, but my memory is mainly you doing wedding jewelry.
Yes. That is pretty much the bread and butter of of my business. It always has been. I think for most fine jewelers it is. I've certainly
Oh, I thought about that.
I mean, I even had a store in San Francisco.
Mhm.
So do you remember did I see you in Colorado?
Yes, I remember so this is the thing, like, years like, it's a lot of years to try to remember. I remember you being in Northern California,
Right.
but I didn't see you I have been obviously, I've been to Northern California many times. I don't think I ever saw you in Northern California. I think at the time you were in Northern California, I saw you in Colorado.
That's correct. I
Right,
went
okay.
out to visit, and so but I had my store, and I mean, people even got engaged in my store.
Oh, that's
Really,
fascinating.
so making those kinds of very, very special pieces for people, that to me is kind of the ultimate expression.
Mhm,
I I don't People generally don't come to me if they want very simple, like kind of Tiffany style rings, because
mhm.
you don't need to go to a custom jewelry designer for that.
No, I mean, no. I mean
And I told people that. I'm like, I'm happy to do it, but you don't need me for that. you need me if you want to do something very uniquely yours. I consider that if you're going to give somebody that gift of love, that really becomes a love letter between you two. And so I'll help you craft that letter into something that's wearable, but I want to make it very special to the two people involved. And so, yeah, bridal is very, very important to me. And part of it it's because of all the emotion.
Mhm.
Because I think of all things, right? Like you bought a piece for your friend, you would never give a piece of jewelry or buy a piece of jewelry if there wasn't love attached to it.
Oh, that's so interesting. That makes me rethink the jewelry. 'Cause I was wearing a friend of mine bought me a pearl necklace years ago, and I wear it, occasionally. She wears hers every day. It's a matching one, and I was talking to somebody about it, and they're like, "Well, she must really love you," and I was like, "Oh, okay."
Yes, yes, exactly. And so being a part of that, what I think no matter what, we could all agree that one of the things that we need more of is love in this world.
Mhm.
And so I am a big champion of that and a big proponent of, let's get back into that space and show the people that we love that we do love them.
Mhm.
So having something tangible like that to me is really that's a big part of what I do and why I do it.
So let me ask you this, because I actually always wondered this, why Northern California? Like, when I mean, okay, no offense, as New Yorkers, we struggle to leave New York. I mean, obviously, we're both here in California now, but what made you? Because
Oh, I'll
I
tell
I
you.
I like the idea of Northern California. I mean, I've considered living there. It's just, to be honest, Southern California, I can't believe I'm saying this, is cheaper. But
Well, okay. So here's the thing about going to San Francisco. I was absolutely determined to work. I wanted to apprentice with a man named Stephen Kretchmer, who is really the guy was genius, mad genius in our world, and the closest alchemist I think that we had in our space. And Tiffany had given him a huge grant just to study exotic colored golds. Now, at
okay.
that point, I had already been doing a lot of my own gold alloying and doing great colors. I was doing apricot gold and peach gold and chartreuse gold and, really beautiful, beautiful iterations of what we think of in as, using pure gold from the bank and then alloying it with copper and silver to create all of these different blends. But I wanted to know more.
Mhm.
And Stephen was doing purple gold and brown gold and blue gold and, really fabulous far out things. And to my absolute delight, he said he would take me on as an apprentice. I had sent him my portfolio, but he would not make me move to LA because he considered it a cesspool there. I'm sorry.
It's
I'm sorry.
okay. I don't
But
take it personally at all. After 25 years, I don't know if I own that. I don't know if I own LA yet.
and so I said, well, what should I do in the meantime? He says, you're going to go to my friend Alan Revere. You're going to tell him you're going to come work for me, and he's to make you a good goldsmith. And I went out to Alan's, and it's a long story, so I'm not going to get into it. But I hand fabricated a clasp that the tolerance was so tight that in the 20 years that Alan had been teaching, he had never seen that when you put it together, it created a vacuum seal.
Um, okay.
And he said, okay. He goes, well, the good news is you are really, really right on the mark. Like you're measuring and your skill is really good. The bad thing is it doesn't work. So you have to cut it apart. You're going to start again and make a new one. Anyway, I was kind of freaked out because it was just a workshop and I didn't have that much time. But I wanted to make more pieces. I wanted to learn more techniques, and I loved it there. It was so fun and creative, and Alan was an amazing instructor, and so I I finished, it passed. He taught me one other technique I wanted to learn, which was anticlastic. And before I left, he offered me a full scholarship. He says, I've never done this before, but for some reason I feel compelled that I want to train you and I want you to move to San Francisco and work with me. And so I went back. I used that anticlastic technique that he taught me. I blended it with my favorite technique, which was high carat gold granulation, and I won my Spectrum Award that year, which was a
Okay.
huge honor. And so from the American Gem Trade Association. And so I thought that that was a really, it was a great opportunity to go and learn from him and train with him. And so that's how I wound up in San Francisco. And then I wound up becoming the assistant director of the school and teaching for him.
That part I remember. The other part I don't think I knew. How many years were you in San Francisco?
So it was a good 5 years.
Okay.
Yeah. And I wouldn't probably not have left, right? Because I had opened up the store if Gwen's mom hadn't passed away and my dad asked me to sell the store and come back to New York.
Mhm. Oh, I mean, I remember all of this. It's just
Wow.
they're not to me, they're not for you, obviously, they're connected events. I had not thought of them as connected. It was just, "Oh, she's gonna come back," but no, well, now I think about it, okay, sorry, I just didn't connect it in my head because that was was she oh my gosh, she was so young.
3.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I'm
she was
thinking
only old.
yeah, I'm thinking about the pictures from back then. Okay, so then when you went back, what was your focus then work-wise? Like, what was your plan? What was your second plan, I guess?
So I wound up this is so crazy, it's always the relationships you've made. There was a gentleman who I knew from San Francisco, who his father was the one who came up with the process for creating lab grown emeralds. And that's the
Okay.
Chatham company.
I was just reading about this.
Had the best lab grown colored stones, bar none. And Tom needed somebody to run his office in New York. So I had taken a little break, just because it was so hard going through that loss. I wound up joining James, uh, took me in as to do recruiting. And I actually really liked that. It was great because I would just get to talk to people all the time and, like find stuff out. And that was cool. But I was ready to go back into my own field. And so I managed Tom's New York office in 580 Fifth Avenue. And from there, he introduced me to his best friend who was opening a new company that was funded by a gentleman named Lorenzo Yih, who was quite a big, big player in the jewelry world. The
Mhm.
guy was the first fully functional mine to market company. And so he owned the gem mines in Brazil. And then he had manufacturing in China. And he serviced everybody from mom and pop stores all the way
Mm.
to the high end to all of the mid tier, everything. It was a whole part of the industry that I didn't know about.
Okay, but that sounds so ahead of its time.
Oh, he was the first.
Okay,
Yeah,
because,
he was
like, the way it's this
created
I mean, it's the 3 different okay, yeah, okay.
And so
Wow.
I'm coming from this very, very, uh, very, very curated small part of high end American jewelry design,
Mhm.
where it's all about awards and it's all about one of a kind pieces, right? I had been doing one show in Aspen, one show in the Hamptons, summer, winter. In the meantime, I'm just like making pieces, doing individual pieces for stores, painting, like, renderings and stuff for people, doing one of a kind things. And here I meet somebody who is pumping out like thousands of SKUs, you know? And I was like, whoa, what is and I realized it's like, oh, this is actually how the industry works. All the other stuff is definitely the icing, and it's wonderful and beautiful, and that's the art of it.
Mhm.
And then the nuts and bolts of it are this whole other process.
Oops. Okay, so that's I'm sorry, that's really fascinating. Like, that's oh, I have so many questions. Wait, did you ever visit Brazil?
I didn't never got to go to Brazil to see the mines, which is
Okay.
very unfortunate. I did wind up representing Lorenzo on the shopping channels, though, eventually, and going out to Europe to represent him there. And then here in the States, I was on NBC. They don't call it that anymore, but you can only, they contract you per country. So you can't be on multiple channels. Um,
Okay.
yeah, so they were like, "Okay, we wanna go with this one, and we'd like you to be on TV." So I was designing for them, I was doing merchandising, I was helping them write, marketing copy. It was really fun. It was great. I did
Well, 'cause
sales.
it's like everything. I mean, it's the whole thing. It's the whole shebang. Yeah.
Yeah, because he had so many different divisions and different lines, so, I worked with different aspects of his company, and I learned a ton from working there.
Okay. I didn't know all this. Because I just you see pieces and then you're working here and then you're working there and then you're living your life as well. Okay. So then what came after that? Because in my head it was San Francisco to San Diego, but I guess there was some no, that's not true.
Yes, it was San Francisco, New York to San
San
Diego. So
Diego. Okay.
right. You were
Yeah.
right about that. And then, I I wound up yeah, so this is, on just on a this is a personal thing, but I wound up getting married,
Well, I
and
remember your wedding. I took the train there. I was thinking about it the other day. Somebody was asking about that, and I took Amtrak down
yes.
there. Mhm.
So he asked me to leave my my job. He didn't like how much I traveled, and so, this is a little wisdom learned, like, don't give up what you really love, and somebody shouldn't ask you, I think, to give up what you really love, but we all learn our lessons, and so I left jewelry. I left jewelry for a while, and yeah,
I
it was kind of a
remember. I have my thoughts. I mean, I remember.
yeah, no, I bet you should have pulled me aside and,
Well, you can't say anything. I can't believe we're gonna have this tangent because I was actually just thinking about when I was getting dressed and I was like, "Oh, remember we went to that restaurant and you sent back the bottle of wine." Like, I have all these memories, but I remember, I was looking
oh
for
gosh, yeah, you took us out to that beautiful restaurant.
I think it's called Providence. I don't even know if it's actually just down the street. If it's still here, it's, like, literally a mile away from here now in Melrose, but I remember that I had thoughts because I guess I'll just say it now, maybe I'll cut it out later. I felt like he didn't like your ambition, and he had the band or the music or whatever, and I'm not saying whatever to music, I'm just saying whatever because I didn't know a lot about it, and I felt you were a bigger light than him, but you can't say that because it's like how do you say like, that's kinda rude, It's like, "Oh, you have a big light," and like,
We're
but I
saying
and I
Yeah, I
but
think what it was is that, I was
Mhm,
helping him a lot with his career, and
mhm.
so he wanted my energy poured in that direction and not in any other direction.
No, and I think about this often. So, I know a lot of writers who okay, there has been a gold rush in, like, indie writing, let's say, over the last 10 years. It's over. Let's just say that ship sailed. But during during the time it's like, let's say it's 2012 to, like, I don't know, 2022. So during that time, there were a lot of people I know where everybody in their family, like, quit their job in order to propel them because if you're selling, like, 10 or 20 million copies, it's a huge business to run, and the person who's writing can't also be, like, designing your thing and getting your airport kiosk set up, you know what I mean? Like, that's so I don't wanna say I was envious because that's not envious, but I really admired families who went all in because, like, the millions were coming in and who they went all in and they're like, "This is gonna be the family business right now, we're all gonna go all in." While I admire that, and there's something to be said for that, and I do wonder about, like, contracts and relationships, and I've talked to some people to some degree about that, but, like, it's not my business, so I don't know. While I admire that, I don't I worry about, and in most of those cases, it wasn't like they quit their creative thing and stopped their whole life to do that. It was, "Let's put all hands on deck so the money can keep coming in." But while I admire that, I think that I worry about, and especially women, and living in LA, I know a number of these people where their creative thing gets derailed because they're pouring into another woman, and it happens with a lot of movie directors, movie producers. These are people I actually know personally. So I have feelings about that, and he's at the Emmys and he's at the Oscars, and she does not. So while she's doing the things to help prop it up, there's no recognition for them.
Well, here's the thing though, I was the breadwinner.
Right.
So I was still the breadwinner no matter what. And so I'd just rather have been the breadwinner doing something I really loved rather than something that kept me um, traveling.
Yeah, so I feel like you weren't, I don't wanna say you weren't married for long. It felt like a few years, and
I
then
was
that was
married
done.
for, actually we were married for a while, and yeah, we were married. Yeah, I mean, I guess for what, 6 years. I know, not super long, but long enough.
Long enough. So then how did you get back into jewelry? Because there was a pause, and then you were back. You know what I mean? Then you were back.
So when I came back, that's when I started Wishcraft.
Okay, I remember that. Okay, I remember that. Okay.
And it was the genesis of that is, so when I had started making jewelry, even before I moved out to San Francisco to study with Alan, I used to do something called wish rings. And I had a little symbol of a little like booklet of symbols that I would work with. I hand drew this little lexicon and the symbols and their meanings, because symbols have always meant a lot to me because I feel it's a universal language, right?
Mhm.
Like birds or wings will mean pretty much the same thing across every culture.
This is true. Yeah.
And so all of these different very threads that tie through all cultures, these are the symbols I'd work with. And the idea was, and then inside you'd get to pick a mantra that I would engrave inside the ring. You would pick however many symbols there was, you could have it wrapping around, you could just have three across the top, the gemstones that you felt were really strong for you. And I would basically create this talisman that you could focus what it is that you wanted. I was probably more into manifestation before manifestation became a thing. And so this was, yeah, this was like 1990, 91 or whatever, like getting really really in love with this, and I did these by hand, and people started buying them, and my most famous client who bought one was Julia Roberts, and she did get her wish from that.
Mhm.
And so I decided, from family, friends, people encouraging me, like, you were so ahead of your time, why don't you bring that back? And so I went into the deep dive of really working with that whole concept again, but broadening it out, right? Because by now, then, the whole crystal thing had become like a big thing. And I knew a lot about energy and gemstones and,
Mhm.
all of that. Um, and then I wound up writing a book, right, that
Mhm.
came out that had a lot of that in there. And that took me back into making jewelry.
How long was your hiatus then?
So it was through it was the second half of, I want to say I stopped for a couple of years.
Mhm.
Yeah, I
Did
stopped
you
for a few.
did you miss it? The I don't know, did you miss it? The not all the stuff around it, like marketing and all that, but did you miss the handicraft, I guess?
Yes, I definitely did. I never stopped completely. You know, you're always still, somebody comes to you and they're like, "Oh, will you do this? Will you make this? Will you, hey, so yeah, it's like, of course, especially if it's somebody I really like and know, I'm not going to turn them down. But then in New York, right, I had moved back to New York, and then I got my position as the director of bridal at Nina.
I remember this. I remember like it's all coming, yeah, I remember that. I remember that because that was yeah. It feels like that was the height of the not the height, I'm sure it's still big, I'm just out of it. That was like the h when when weddings went from being a thing to a thing.
Oh, yes, because I worked with a lot of the TV stations that were doing, all the wedding shows and things like that. I supplied a lot of them with their jewelry, and I will say I had never ever been in that situation where you're expected to create that many designs, because it's not fine jewelry, it's fashion, right? And so you're on a fashion cadence, you're on that calendar.
Which is
And so there were four lines a year, and each line had to be tailored down to at least 30 pieces per line.
mhm,
And you were building for mass. Like we were supplying all of the big stores as well as smaller bridal stores. So, obviously, like if you're selling to Macy's and Amazon and Nordstrom, and I was doing private label, I was a private label for Beholden, and so it's like anthropologies, like they're not, oh, we only need two,
2. Yeah.
I even did private label for Target,
Oh my gosh.
line for them. It was amazing. It was an amazing time because it forced me to be a better designer than I'd ever had to be before. Because there's no real time to just sit and deliberate over a stone or, this or like this little detail. Like, oh, they want it. No, the filigree is to be a tiny bit tighter on that. No, you need to just get out more styles.
But this is
And they
yeah.
it's not just jewelry, because I'm doing headpieces, I'm doing sashes, I'm doing veils. I had to do hardware for handbags, for shoes. Like it was great. I absolutely recommended it to all my students. Like, push yourself forward
Mhm.
to go outside of what you think it is that you do, because when you come back to what you do, you'll be so much stronger and so much sharper and so much faster.
Because the flexibility, like the brain, like literally the brain elasticity to like be able to work at that pace. So did it I don't know that I looked at it, like, I remember you like sending pictures and I was like, "That looks hard." Like, that looks like it looks hard. Although I do know writers, like I okay, so there's like 2 kinds of writers. There's people who like write 1 book like every 5 years and they think about every word and every sentence and the punctuation and all that. They have their place. I don't know a lot of them. But then there are people I know who are like, like at the time writing for Harlequin, and Harlequin's like, "When's the next thing? Did you just oh, you produced it? Okay, tomorrow." Exactly, because we have a hole to fill, and where's your April release? Where's your like, you know what I mean? It was just and
Right.
those people, and a lot of them I know now, I was actually just talking to one the other day, became much better writers when they got off that treadmill, because they had really figured out what the elements needed to be and how to do it quickly.
Yes.
But going in, and for everybody I know who did that, because nobody starts out that way, going in, they were very intimidated. I mean, there's a lot of like, they'd be online all day going, it's like, "Oh my god, like, what have I signed up for?"
I love a good challenge, right? So throughout life, I feel that the challenge is where the opportunities are, and it's an opportunity to grow and expand and learn, right? And so it's like we're all here, I think, just to keep elevating whatever it is that we do and help other people along the way. So I embraced all of those different opportunities. And it was the first time then I opened up global sourcing for them for this department. And so I was going out to Thailand, Hong Kong, and China a couple of times a year to work with the factories, right? Because it's, funny enough, right? Because like the whole thing now about bringing manufacturing back to the States. And I remember my buyer at Nordstrom, I was like, I create everything right here in North America. She's like, and I don't care. That's really nice. She goes, but unless you can meet a price point like you can if you're producing over in Asia, I don't care. And neither do my customers. It's like,
Got
noted.
it. I know, got it. I heard you, heard you. Okay. So, oh, I have so many questions. Okay. What did you think of, I mean, I've been to China, but not a manufacturer. What did you think of the manufacturing process? Uh,
Well, so one of the things I was really one of the highlights of being at Nino was that I developed a relationship with Swarovski, and
mhm.
so I got the invitation. I became a designer with for World Jewelry Facets. So that's very curated, select group of designers that Swarovski just feels, have a certain aesthetic. And it's like, oh, I'm in a book with Oscar de la Renta and, Chan Lu and like really pretty famous people now. And bringing that to the company that I worked for was really special. But I designed the piece that was going to get submitted to World Jewelry Facets while I was on the plane going out there.
Oh my God. Okay.
And when I landed in Hong Kong, my Swarovski rep, I said, I need to buy all of the materials so I could do the sample while I'm here. And so she took me to the jewelry district in Hong Kong, and I bought all the pieces that I needed, the chain and everything. And then when I was in China, I brought that with me to China and to one of our factories that did our leather accessories and showed them the design. I drew it out in my hotel room, and it's called the Phoenix. So because the company is not really a jewelry company per se, it's leather and then all Swarovski chain.
Mhm.
And so they at the factory, the guys were like, it'll never work. It's going to tear right through this leather because the leather you want to use is this really nice deerskin. And I'm like, it'll work. We have to get the balance right. And I know how to do that. And so I had gotten the D rings for that. And I knew how to position it so that it wouldn't ever tear the leather. And I built that in the factory on my translator.
Oh my gosh. And so then
They're like, "You're incredible. Like, what an engineer you are that because this would work." And I was like, "Well, thank you." But yeah, I never had any doubts.
so then but then the reproduction of that, how much supervision is there to reproduce it? So
So
that
after the samples done, like that's what's really good about factories is that if you have a factory that is you have a good relationship with, they don't need a whole lot of supervision once they have something to mimic.
Mhm. Okay.
And so they got all the materials then to make the subsequent pieces, and there weren't a lot made because Swarovski would only, they give you a budget for how much, and these are to go on tour. They're
Right.
not to be done commercially. And then my company, had a big fight about whether we create these or not. That they're they were very high end because of the amount of Swarovski
Mm.
used. And so they chose not to create this, and I didn't want to do a stripped down generic version because it would lose its impact.
Mhm. That's a whole yeah. Yeah,
But yeah, it was definitely it was one of those ones that became a pick for the knot. And I remember Randy Finoli from Say Yes to the Dress
mhm.
by the bridal show, and he was like, "I have been looking all day for this piece because everybody is talking about this." And he goes, "It's phenomenal." He goes, "Kudos to you, congratulations for doing this. And I want to tell you, if I were you, I would sit at home on my couch watching TV wearing just this. It's this. It's not naked. Just wear this."
Oh my gosh. So, how did you find the wedding industry? Because it's very I don't know, it's changed so much. I don't even know what it is now, but it's very I don't know. It makes a lot of money, but it has a high I don't say a high demand, a very particular kind of demand.
Well, yeah, because every detail is so precious,
Mhm.
right? The stakes are very, very high. I think people are very there's so much anxiety around having the perfect event. You have to look like the perfect person. You are your idealized self on that day. For me, my job, I always feel is because I was a makeup artist, like I worked doing hair and makeup in my teens, right? And I always felt that no matter what, you should feel your most beautiful, however way it is, however way you decide to translate that
Mhm.
on this day of all days. Hopefully, you can take that and feel that way throughout your life.
Mhm.
But when you can embody that vision of yourself, because we all have a vision of who we are and how we project into the world, if you can take that and distill that into something that is uniquely yours and just the pinnacle of who you are, then I did my job to help you get there,
Mhm.
right? And that is always the thing of trying to raise somebody up to feel that way, because when you feel amazing, you are way, way better, and you're gonna be better to everybody else
Mhm.
than
So
you were
true.
before.
Yeah.
And so, again, it's just like in the way every way that everybody can, because we all have our own toolbox of trying to help people be their best selves is what to me it's all about. So yeah, if somebody wants to feel glamorous, I want to help them feel glamorous.
So, well, okay, that said, would you do it again? Would you go do wedding stuff again?
Yes, I totally would. I mean, and so now with House of Joy, right? I'm that's so I don't did I tell you how that started?
No, no.
Okay, so when James passed away, dealing with all of the grief and all of the estate stuff, and Gwen decides to ask me to create an engagement ring. And I was
I
really
feel like I saw her proposal photos. It's not where was I okay, I have a vision in my head and
right.
yeah.
So yeah, she'd been with Ebony for a long time, and she had planned to do this proposal when James very suddenly passed. And so she couldn't backstroke on any of that because they had already planned this trip to Hawaii. And I didn't have she didn't give me much time. She kind of like just threw it on me. And if it had been really anybody but Gwen, I would have you're out of your cotton picking mind. Like this is not going to happen. Like, and you have a lot of nerve asking, but for Gwen, I
Mhm.
mean, that's my baby, right? So it's like I'm not going to tell her no, and it pushed me into making an engagement ring, of which came out really well, and her friends started asking her to ask me to make them rings. And so we're in Pennsylvania taking care of another estate thing, just, I don't know, like the middle towards the in the fall of this past year. And she's like, we should have started a company a couple of years ago. And I was like, why? Do you want a company? And she goes, well, yeah. And I'm like, okay, let's do it then. And so that's how we started House of Joy. And so, yes, we're back in bridal. Not in the same way. I'm not doing, I'm still really basically doing, I'll work with other stones, but it's mostly diamonds and fine gems.
Okay, so I have questions. So wait, how old is House of Joy?
Joy started basically in September.
Okay.
So
And
it's young.
what is it that you want to do? Okay, how can I say this? 2025 and 2026 is very different because social media is different. Like it's a different landscape than the 90s, the 2000. I mean, the landscape is different in a lot of ways. So how is it going to be different? Do you think you'd ever do a storefront again or no?
No,
Okay.
I don't see myself doing that. I actually hated having a store. That was a foolish uh, step on my part of not going to work in a store before deciding to have
Open
a
a
store.
store.
I'm like, oh yeah, I'm going to have my own gallery. It's going to be really fabulous. It's like, oh, I actually don't like getting stuck any place. So,
It yeah, you're not the first. I mean, you're not the first person I've met because the idea of like even a boutique and you're like, oh, I can design the fashion and do all this stuff, but you're actually like stuck in like in four walls and four tiny walls. I mean, unless most, but you know what I mean. And it's a lot. So what? So do you plan to like then really use like social media marketing as for? Or how big do you want to be? Because the sky is
how
always
big?
the limit, but then you have to manage the sky.
Right. I mean, eventually, I think I would like to see House of Joy become kind of a lifestyle brand
Okay.
because I there's just a lot of opportunity for it to grow and expand in a couple of different ways and still stay in the wedding and event space. And on in the meantime, I from working at GIA, and I started to realize that I love mentoring. So I got to work with so many students and help them win awards and
Mm.
um, overcome a lot of fear, get more motivated, really cull their ambition, and take very realistic next steps that have seen them grow and like start to really earn success. And so I'd like to do more coaching and more mentoring as well.
Okay, so I have a different question. Well, okay, so I will say this. I will include the link in the show notes for your Instagram and other socials for the House of Joy. Okay, I have a different question because I've been thinking about this. I don't even know how it came up. What are your thoughts on manufactured stones? Because the manufactured colored stones came before diamonds, and now okay, this is a US thing because I do know in Europe people do not they're still not they may come because America has a big influence into like very big stones. But given the preference for very large carat stones and the cost of very large carat stones, manufactured stones have become more popular. I don't know the percentage. I looked it up a couple weeks ago, but I don't remember.
I can tell you
Oh.
actually,
Eh,
I follow it pretty closely. I am very egalitarian as
mm,
far as materials go. I am no longer a snob. I I don't judge people, and a lot of that came from understanding that people need to feel good
mm.
and they need to feel special. And so I would never I don't sticky note anybody with anything. I don't have an issue with lab grown diamonds. Just like I didn't have an issue with lab grown color.
Mhm.
Lab grown diamonds have actually been around for a long time, like a really, really long time. They just couldn't do really nice gem quality ones.
Mhm. Yeah.
So more over the last, certain years, especially in size. And I think that just the chemical composition is exactly the same, so they perform the same way. So you get the same beauty when you see it.
Mhm.
And and so if you feel like you, for whatever reason, you want an organic stone, well, by all means, have an organic stone. If you feel that you want to put your money elsewhere, and I am also very practical, and I always say, hey, you know what? Don't forego having a house or a new car or something, other things you might need for the sake of a ring.
Mhm.
It's it's not a diamonds are a lousy investment anyway.
I know. Somebody was telling me about I did not know there was a resale. I only learned this recently that there's a I don't call it resale market. People go to jewelers to upgrade their stones, and so they'll pay like 50, but they can only sell it for 7 or whatever it is. And I was like, "Oh," I was like, "That's worse than a car." Like that's a fall off in value, although I actually I
Steep
couldn't figure out why. Why is there such a fall off? Because
because it's hard to there's just not a great resale. I will tell you, I mean, back in the day, like when dealers would have somebody would come to them, they needed to liquidate, or maybe they did size up, then they would have a stone for a good price, right? Because they didn't pay a lot to take it back or take
Mhm.
it from somebody else who had it, and um, they probably didn't get a lot in their trade in, and so I was able to snap up stones for my clients at a really great deal, because there's nothing. I mean, it's still a diamond.
It's
It's
so
not like a shoe or something.
yeah.
It's a shoe.
So, oh my god. So then what is the demand? I mean, do people
It's
when
it's over
you
half now of engagement rings are done in lab.
wow. That's what do you think is gonna happen to the market then? I have so many thoughts about
Oh, the
well,
market has completely changed. Completely. Natural diamonds are much less than they were, except in much higher sizes and grades.
mhm,
Um, those are still rare. Those will always be rare, and so they'll command a good price. But your regular 1 carat stones, half-carat stones, maybe even 1 and 1/4s, or they're much less than they used to be. And but lab grown is also very, very economical too.
no, I heard that the price had really gone down in the last few years on that as well.
Yeah, I think they're producing too much. I think, there's a certain level, I've noticed this in the industry, where hmm, it's almost like the Ouroboros, right? It's like it just kind of eats itself,
Mhm.
because people get very short sighted. They're very short term in their thinking. And so instead of realizing you're going to actually pull the bottom out from your own industry, they're kind of looking for a quick buck.
That's true in so many industries. It's so many, so many. So then what when okay, so then now when you're designing and procuring stones, what kind of conversations do you have about what people want? I mean, I don't know. I only learned about this like I want to say like 3 weeks ago, and then I went down a little rabbit hole and then I got out of it because I don't need the knowledge for any purpose in my own life. So, what are people looking for now? I only know about it because people were talking about it in terms of having very large stones. And I don't know if that's celebrity driven because I live here, so it's hard for me to like have any, sense of things.
I think it
But
is, no matter what, right? So if you are in your friend group, right? Let's just look at this almost on a psychological level. And if at one time, the average was is everybody got a 3/4 carat, or so let's say half a carat to 1 carat. One
Mhm.
carat was considered like a hallmark, a high hallmark,
Mhm.
depending on how old you were, what your flexibility was in your financial situation, and um, and if you were a gal and you got a 1 carat, well, that guy did great, or whoever got that ring did great.
Mhm.
But as it changes, and so now if everybody in your sphere are starting out at 2 carat stones, well, your 1 carat is going to look a lot smaller, and the mind starts to compare almost no matter what, right? It takes a very, I think, very secure person and for a person who never does the comparison.
Mhm.
And so human nature says, well, I want that. And that no longer looks big because everybody else is doing it. And so I want that or a little more. I think humans are kind of wired, right? Like there's that bigger, better, faster, more
Mhm.
mentality, especially in this country. And so that in itself kind of steps in, and I find clients who are okay with going a little bit smaller in their stone, like in their center stone, usually though will ask for more of something else.
Mhm.
They want more design on it. They want other details that make the ring unique and um, special.
Mhm.
Customization's a very big one right now, so
Mhm.
it's nice.
Oh my god, I just had this thought. You must have had an Etsy store at one time
I did.
because
Is that how you bought your piece?
I had never heard of Etsy before you because I live in a basement. And well, after you, it started a little addiction. I love Etsy. I can't. I need to. There's always something in the cart, and I need to close the thing because you can have anything unique, and I love unique things, and you can just have like all sorts of unique things, unique like computer cover, like unique. Oh my god, unique everything. I bought sneakers once that were like completely customized. So I even Etsy's blocked on my computer. I'm gonna be honest. So, but what were you doing? I don't. Okay, but it was the early days of Etsy because I literally had never heard of it back then. And what made you choose like that venue at that time?
It was very open-ended, so you could just put your things up there. It was very low cost, to have a quote unquote storefront. You didn't have to really do much grooming. I'm not very techy, so like having a website that was fully functioning with a shopping feature,
Mm,
that wasn't I wasn't going to have that capacity to build that.
mhm,
And so Etsy gave makers who are makers and not tech people a great platform and really easy merchant services to work with. And so I did like that. What I hated, and I realized, just like the same things, it's always a learning. Like I said, I don't like being tied to four walls. I also don't like standing in line at the post office all the time.
Oh the eBay people knew that because I remember you'd go to the post office and the eBay people would come in with like a bucket that they borrowed from the post office and stand there
I
to go package by package by package. I remember that.
Right? Yeah, and then people are like, "Oh, you just buy the machine and do that." I'm like, "Yeah, I just don't know if this has my name on it." I'm learning that there's certain things I feel good about doing, and other things that just kind of make me not happy. And so that's one of them.
Okay, sorry, that was a tangent. I just remember. I don't know, it came into my mind. So where do you do your jewelry making now?
So now that I moved, it's funny that you ask, right? Because somebody else was asking me, a gal that I had done a ring as a favor for her friend
Mhm.
after 7 years or so of wearing it, caught her engagement ring in like a drawer and bent the head of
Mhm.
the ring, right? The crown of the ring. And so I went to find somebody who is in Redondo Beach to fix this ring, and they're like, "Why don't you just do it yourself?" Like, because my bench is in storage. I moved. My
Mhm.
whole studio is in storage. I can't.
Are you getting back to it then? Or yeah.
I have no room here. And so when I'm designing pieces now, I am in this position of working with other people who can actually be my hands. And to a certain degree, I've done that for a while because it's like I'm not casting in my own place. I always like to send those out anyway. um, Things like that. I do definitely feel that I like to work with the best people available, and I'm not the best at certain things. And so, like, I'd rather work with a diamond setter who is superb than have the ego to say, like, no, I have to do it myself. So I'm going to do it not so beautifully, like you're going to live with that. No.
It's true. Like, it's as an adult, how can I say this? What did I say to I always say that I like, "Oh, I sub that out." Like, I sub that out. And so,
Right.
that's I was like, or well, somebody said to me, she said, "What did you do?" I'm like, "I hired it out." I was like, "Look, I'm gonna be honest, like, I just hired that part out. Like, I could tell you that I was here, like, working it out, but that's not true. Like, I just hired it out."
Yeah, like I don't buy pre-made food and put it on a plate and say I made it. I actually get into my kitchen, right, and rattle my pots and pans and make stuff. But for other things, like if somebody I can do those aspects much better and more efficiently, then it makes so much sense to do that. And I remember a friend of mine saying, "Why would you take food out of somebody else's mouth?"
Somebody said
You
that to
know,
me too. They're like, "That is their whole job. It's not gonna cost you, like, the end of the earth." It's true. And they're like, they have certain efficiency. I think it's paid, like, $90 for somebody to do something. And I thought, I email them, and then it was done. And the time it would have taken me, I would have spun out, and I, like, thought about you know what I mean? And I was like, "But look at the magic. It's done." Like,
hours of your life that would cost way more than the money it took for somebody to do this who this is what they do day in day
every
out.
day out. And the proceed like, it was all so much easier for them, and I would looked at that and I thought, "Oh my god," like, the thing is the time it took me to, like, make that decision took longer than it should have, because 'cause you're like, "Oh, well, I can do it. Oh, oh, no." Okay, so I guess my last question is gonna be about baking. So the other thing that you've always done is bake. I don't wanna say I don't bake. I can bake and I do bake, but I do it because I want a product. I don't do it for any joy or pleasure. I just want the baked good. Um,
I will have to
so
send you some baked goods.
so what you've always done beautiful baked goods, and you still do beautiful baked goods. Are you doing it for the food, or are you doing it for the craft of it?
Um, okay, so when that was the first thing I ever wanted to be when I grew up. When I was in elementary school, I wanted to be a pastry chef.
Oh my gosh, okay.
And so I went to a Greek Orthodox school, right? That was like an hour away from where I lived. And my dad was the accountant for an amazing Italian cafe, and their baker was from Italy. And he said he would take me on as an apprentice. And until I found out that I would have to be at the cafe at like 4 in the
In the
morning,
morning, I knew that was gonna be the kicker.
school,
Before.
right? I had to be at
Mm.
and that was not going to happen, right? Because there was like no way that anybody was going to take this 8-year-old to the cafe every morning to work with this man. And but I never stopped loving baking, and I find cooking and baking is what relaxes me. I did do it for a short time as a side hustle, to do catering and things. over the holidays, I realized I baked 10 cakes. Yeah, which was insane. And yeah, that was really, but it was good. Like I enjoy the art of it, and I love the pleasure it gives people when they eat it. So yeah, so that makes me happy that way.
And you still do, I mean, you're still doing it because you did something, I don't want to say it was like a bundt pan, but it was like a swirl, and I thought, "Oh, that's so pretty." And I
Oh
thought,
my gosh, those Nordic ware bundt pans.
yeah, yeah.
I have a real good collection of them now,
Mhm.
and I have to say that they're spectacular. I have not once, like, knock on wood, I have never had a fail.
'Cause of all the nooks and crevice, you know what I mean? All of that, yeah.
That Christmas tree one that I did?
Yeah.
So it was a three-dimensional Christmas tree, right? And you stand it up, right? The lady that I bought that from, because that is no longer in production, and she had said, I never was able, I'm not the baker you are. She goes, I saw your work. She goes, I think you're going to have fun with this pan. She goes, I, I never got it to work.
Oh, fascinating. Okay. I would never do it because I don't have that kind of, I have no patience for, I I have patience for cooking because, well, I have to eat every day, so I don't really know what I would not have the patience for because I don't know another way to get food every day. I mean, I guess you can order in, but I don't. I prefer to cook the food because then I know what's in it and I know I'm gonna like it. Um, then I'm guaranteed that it's gonna be something I like. But baking, I don't know. Like during COVID, I baked a little bit, because my son asked me. He was like, "People are baking." He was like, we were watching The Great British Bake Off, and I was commenting a lot, and he was like, "You know all of these things?" And I was like, "I don't not have the knowledge. I'm just not gonna stand in the kitchen and bake. Like, there's no point." But I got I can see it now, the KitchenAid, like, out of the corner, and I did a lot of baking during COVID, and then, well, I put on too much weight, so then I had to let that go. But I I enjoyed it. I enjoy the idea of it, and then you have one slice, and I think, like, we baked a cake, like, a few weeks ago because he wanted something, and we each had a slice, and then I was like, "Now what?" So we put it in the freezer because, like,
That
um
is the problem, right? So it's like, what do you do with all of this cake? And so, but here's the thing with cake, and why I love cake is because cake usually equates celebration, right?
Mhm.
And and so it's a time to gather and celebrate something. Celebrate even maybe just the fact that you're together with people that you care about. And and so I'm always the cake lady. I will always be the one that, everybody says, will you bring dessert? It's like, yeah, because,
Mhm.
that's the happy place of enjoying something sweet, the sweetness of life together.
I love that. Okay, so, Joanna, I wanna thank you so much for doing this. It's such a delight to talk to you. I knew 10% of the jewelry part. You know what? Like, you just hear things in passing and then we move on. You know what I mean? But it's so good to hear that story. And I still have questions about the GIA, but that would be too long. But I'm so glad that you took the time and explained the whole thing. And it's literally like it's it's utterly fascinating. It's fascinating. So I'm really happy that you've gotten to do something that you love for so long.
Thank you. And thank you for all of your wonderful questions and for letting me have the opportunity to chat.
So with that, I want to say thank you and have a wonderful evening because it's getting dark. We're in the same time zone.
The time to thrill with me, your host, Aime Austin. If you enjoyed today's episode, I hope you'll share, rate, and leave a 5-star review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. It'll help others find and enjoy my conversations with brilliant women creators. Also, please hit the subscribe button on your podcast app. In addition to hosting this podcast, I'm an author. My latest book, His Last Mistress, is out now. Check out the 5-star reviews, get your copy before someone else spoils the twist. I'm also the author of the Nicole Long series of legal thrillers. The first 4 books in the series are now live. You can download Outcry Witness, Major Crimes, Without Consent, and The Murders Began to your e-reader right now. I'm also the author of the Casey Court series of legal thrillers. These titles are available wherever books are sold, your local library, and also an audiobook. You can follow me on Substack, Instagram, Blue Sky, Facebook, and TikTok, all at Legal Thriller Author. One long word. Thanks for listening, and I'll be back with you soon with more great conversations.